The Montana sunset painted the sky in violent shades of crimson and gold as Elena Blackwood's weathered truck rattled down the dusty mountain road, twin toddlers sleeping in the back seat, and a chestnut mare trailing behind in a borrowed horse trailer. She'd named that horse Wyatt 3 years ago, never imagining she'd one day bring it to the very man who'd broken her heart and inspired its name. Fate had cruel ironies, but desperate times called for desperate measures. And Elena was desperate indeed. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The engine sputtered ominously as Elena guided the truck around another hairpin turn. April in the Bitterroot Valley meant unpredictable weather, and the darkening clouds on the horizon promised an early spring storm. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Just 20 more miles to Redemption Ranch. 20 more miles before she'd have to face Wyatt Callahan again after all these years. Just a little further, she whispered, glancing in the rearview mirror at her sleeping 3-year-olds, Lily and Lucas, their copper curls so like their father's, the father they'd never met, the father who didn't even know they existed. The truck coughed, shuddered, then died completely, coasting to a stop on the narrow mountain road. Elena slammed her palm against the steering wheel, fighting back tears of frustration. She'd known the ancient Ford was on its last legs, but she'd prayed it would make it all the way to redemption. She should have known better than to trust in prayers. "Mama?" Lily's sleepy voice came from the back seat. "Are we there yet?" Elena forced a smile into her voice. "Not yet, sweetheart. The truck's just taking a little rest." She stepped out into the biting wind, pulling her denim jacket tighter around her slender frame. The temperature was dropping fast as the storm approached. With shaking hands, she pulled out her phone. No service. Not surprising on this remote stretch of Montana backroad. The mare nickered nervously from the trailer, sensing Elena's distress. "It's okay, Wyatt," she soothed, reaching through the slats to stroke the horse's velvety nose. "We're going to be fine." But they weren't fine. They were stranded on a mountain road with night falling and a storm rolling in. Her savings were depleted. Her late mother's medical bills had consumed everything, and the twins needed stability. She'd swallowed her pride to seek out the one person who might help them, and now they might freeze before she even got the chance to ask. A distant rumble caught her attention. Not thunder, but the distinctive growl of a diesel engine. Headlights appeared around the bend, and Elena's heart leapt. She waved her arms frantically as a mud-splattered pickup truck approached. The vehicle slowed, then stopped. The driver's side window rolled down, revealing a weathered face beneath a well-worn Stetson. "Car trouble, ma'am?" "Yes," Elena exhaled in relief. "My truck just died, and I've got my kids with me." The man nodded, his gaze shifting to the horse trailer. "That's quite a predicament. Where are you headed?" "Redemption Ranch." Elena swallowed hard. "Do you know it?" Something flickered across the man's features. "I should. I work there." He extended a calloused hand. "Jake Williamson, foreman at Redemption." Elena hesitated before taking it. Elena Blackwood. Recognition dawned in Jake's eyes, though he tried to hide it. "Blackwood? You're Maggie's daughter?" Elena nodded, the mention of her recently deceased mother bringing a fresh wave of grief. "You knew her?" Everyone around these parts knew Maggie Blackwood. Fine horsewoman. His gaze softened. "Heard she passed. My condolences." "Thank you." Elena glanced back at her truck. "I hate to impose, but is there any chance you could give us a lift to the ranch? I need to speak with Wyatt Callahan." Jake's eyebrows rose slightly. "The boss isn't expecting visitors." "I know. It's complicated." Elena looked away. "But it's important." After a moment's consideration, Jake nodded. "Let's get your little ones transferred over. Storm's coming in fast. We can send someone back for your truck and trailer tomorrow." Within minutes, Elena had moved the drowsy twins to Jake's truck, securing them in the back seat with blankets he provided. The foreman insisted on checking the horse trailer was properly secured before they left. "Pretty animal," he commented, studying the chestnut mare. "What's her name?" Elena hesitated. "Wyatt." Jake's expression was unreadable as he closed the trailer door. Interesting choice. The drive was mostly silent, save for the occasional question about the road conditions or the sleeping children. Elena stared out the window as familiar landmarks appeared. The lightning-struck pine that marked the boundary of Callahan land, the winding creek where she and Wyatt had once spent lazy summer afternoons, the rocky outcropping where he'd first kissed her under a star-filled sky. Been a long time since you've been back? Jake's question broke through her memories. 5 years. Elena kept her voice neutral. Things look different. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Some things change, some don't. Jake turned onto a private road marked by a wooden sign, Redemption Ranch. The boss, for instance, still works from sunup to sundown, still doesn't talk much. Elena's stomach twisted with anxiety. Is he married? Jake glanced at her, his expression softening slightly. No, ma'am. Never came close. The ranch house appeared through the trees, larger than Elena remembered, with new additions and a freshly painted exterior. Several outbuildings dotted the property, and the horse barn had been expanded to twice its former size. Redemption Ranch had clearly prospered under Wyatt's management. Wait here, Jake instructed as he parked near the main house. I'll let the boss know you're here. Thank you. Elena turned to check on the twins, still mercifully asleep, their peaceful faces unaware of the approaching storm, both literal and emotional. Jake disappeared into the house, leaving Elena alone with her thundering heartbeat and racing thoughts. What would she say to Wyatt after all this time? How would he react to learning he was a father? Would he even believe her? The front door swung open, and a tall figure emerged. Even in the fading light, there was no mistaking Wyatt Callahan. He moved with the same fluid grace she remembered, though his shoulders seemed broader, his stance more confident. He paused at the bottom of the porch steps, his eyes finding her through the truck's windshield. Elena's breath caught in her throat. 5 years hadn't changed him as much as she'd expected. The same rugged features, the same copper hair, now with threads of silver at the temples, and the same intense blue eyes that had once looked at her with such love. Now those eyes revealed nothing but shock as she stepped out of the truck. Elena? His voice was deeper than she remembered, roughened by years and perhaps whiskey. Hello, Wyatt. She straightened her shoulders, determined not to show weakness. It's been a while. He moved toward her cautiously, as one might approach a wild animal. 5 years, 2 months, and 17 days. He stopped several feet away, but who's counting? The familiar sardonic tone made something twist in Elena's chest. Before she could respond, a small voice called from inside the truck. Mama? Are we there? Wyatt's gaze shifted to the vehicle, his brow furrowing. Elena moved to open the back door, helping her sleepy children clamber out. They stood rubbing their eyes, clinging to her legs as they regarded the stranger before them with curiosity. Wyatt, Elena said quietly, resting her hands on the twins' shoulders. I'd like you to meet Lily and Lucas. His expression remained carefully neutral, but Elena saw the slight widening of his eyes, the almost imperceptible step backward. He wasn't a fool. The timing, the copper curls, the shape of their jaws, anyone could see the resemblance. They're 3, she added unnecessarily. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Closer now. Fat raindrops began to fall, splattering the dusty ground. You'd better come inside, Wyatt said finally, his voice betraying nothing of his thoughts. Storm's almost here. The house was warm and smelled of coffee and wood smoke. Jake had disappeared, tactfully making himself scarce. But an older woman Elena didn't recognize appeared from what must be the kitchen. Martha, we have guests, Wyatt said, his tone clipped. This is Elena Blackwood and her children. They'll be staying the night. Could you prepare the guest rooms? The housekeeper's curious gaze lingered on the twins before she nodded. Of course. I'll make up beds right away. Those little ones look plumb tuckered out. Thank you. Elena tried to smile, but exhaustion was catching up with her. They've had a long day. We all have, Wyatt murmured. "Martha, could you take the children to the kitchen for some hot chocolate? Ms. Blackwood and I need to talk." Once the twins were settled in the kitchen, happily sipping hot chocolate under Martha's watchful eye, Wyatt led Elena to his study, a room she'd never seen before, an addition to the old house. He closed the door behind them and moved to stand behind his desk, putting the solid oak barrier between them. "You have children," he stated flatly. "Yes." "My children." Elena met his gaze directly. "Yes." Wyatt braced his hands on the desk, his knuckles whitening. "When were you planning to tell me?" "I tried." Elena fought to keep her voice steady. "I called for weeks after I left. Your father told me you didn't want to speak to me." A muscle jumped in Wyatt's jaw. "And you believed him?" "He was very convincing." Elena's fingers twisted together. "He said you'd moved on, that you were seeing someone else, that you told him I was just a summer fling." Wyatt's laugh held no humor. "And knowing me as you did, that sounded plausible?" Elena looked away. "I was 22, heartbroken and then pregnant. I wasn't thinking clearly." "Clearly." He moved from behind the desk, pacing to the window. Rain now lashed against the glass, the storm in full force. "So why now? After 3 years of their lives, why come to me now?" The question stung, though it was fair. "My mother died 3 months ago. Cancer." Wyatt turned, his expression softening slightly. "I heard. I'm sorry. Maggie was a good woman." "She was." Elena swallowed against the tightness in her throat. "She helped me raise the twins, let us live on her small ranch. But the medical bills, I had to sell everything to cover them. We have nowhere else to go." "So this is about money." His voice hardened again. "No!" Elena stood, anger flaring. "This is about my children knowing their father. This is about them having stability when I've lost everything. This is about giving them a chance at a better life than I can provide right now." Wyatt studied her for a long moment. "You could have sued for child support. Why didn't you?" "Because I didn't want to force your hand." Elena sighed. "And because I was angry and stubborn and hurt. By the time I'd worked through those feelings, I'd convinced myself we were better off without your family's influence." "My father died 2 years ago," Wyatt said quietly. Elena hadn't known. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He was a manipulative, controlling man who drove away everyone who ever mattered to me." Wyatt ran a hand through his hair. "Including you, apparently." An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. Outside, lightning flashed, followed by a crack of thunder that shook the windows. "There's one more thing," Elena said finally. "The horse in the trailer. Her name is Wyatt." His eyebrows rose. "You named a horse after me. She was born the day I found out I was pregnant." Elena offered a small, sad smile. "She's stubborn, loyal, and beautiful. The name fit." Something shifted in Wyatt's expression. "Where is she now?" "Still in the trailer. Jake said we'd deal with her in the morning." Wyatt shook his head. "Not in this storm." He moved to the door. "I'll get her settled in the barn. You should check on the twins." Before Elena could respond, he was gone, pulling on a rain slicker from the hook by the door and disappearing into the storm. Through the window, she watched his tall figure stride purposefully toward her trailer, rain pelting down around him. In the kitchen, she found the twins nearly asleep at the table, their empty mugs pushed aside. Martha was telling them a story about a ranch horse who could find lost calves in snowstorms. "Time for bed, you two," Elena said softly. "But we want to see the horses," Lucas protested sleepily. "Tomorrow," Elena promised. When the storm is over, Martha showed them to 2 adjoining guest rooms, one for Elena, one for the twins. After getting the children changed into pajamas from their hastily packed bag and tucked into bed, Elena sat between them until they drifted off, their small hands clutching hers. "Is this our new home, Mama?" Lily had asked just before sleep claimed her. "I don't know, sweetheart," Elena had whispered truthfully. "We'll see." Now, sitting alone in her own room, listening to the storm rage outside, Elena wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. The reception had been chilly at best, hostile at worst. Wyatt had every right to be angry. She'd kept his children from him for 3 years. A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Wyatt standing there, his hair damp from the rain, his expression unreadable. "Your mare is settled in the south barn," he said. "She's a fine animal." "Thank you." Elena hesitated. "Would you like to come in? We should talk more." Wyatt glanced past her to the connecting door that led to the twins' room. "Are they asleep?" Elena nodded. He stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at her as if trying to reconcile the woman before him with the girl he'd once known. "They look like you," he said finally. "They have your hair, your smile." Elena sat on the edge of the bed. "Lucas has your temper. Lily has your way with horses." A ghost of a smile touched Wyatt's lips. "They ride already." "Since before they could walk," my mother insisted. "Maggie would." The smile faded. "Elena, why didn't you try harder to reach me? A letter? A visit? Anything?" Elena closed her eyes briefly. "Because your father showed me the engagement announcement in the local paper. You and Victoria Hammond. He said the wedding was in 6 months. Wyatt's face darkened. There was never any engagement. Victoria was his business partner's daughter. He tried to push us together for years. I didn't know that. Elena looked down at her hands. I was young and hurt and believed the worst. By the time I realized I should have questioned it, the twins were born, and I was overwhelmed. Then it seemed too late. It's always been too late for us, hasn't it? Wyatt's voice held a weariness that tugged at Elena's heart. Always something in the way. Elena didn't know how to respond to that. The air between them felt charged with unspoken words and old wounds. The children, Wyatt said abruptly. What have you told them about me? That their daddy lives on a beautiful ranch with many horses. That he doesn't know about them yet, but that he's a good man who would love them if he knew them. Wyatt's expression softened. You said that even when you were angry with me? I never wanted them to feel unwanted. Elena met his gaze, and I never truly believed you would reject them if you knew. He moved to the window, looking out at the storm-lashed landscape. I've built something here, Elena. Redemption Ranch isn't just a home. It's a business, a reputation, a future. After my father died, I swore I'd create something that was entirely mine, not tainted by his influence. And now I've complicated that, Elena said quietly. Yes. He turned back to her. But maybe it needed complicating. Before she could ask what he meant, he continued, You and the twins can stay, at least until you figure out your next steps. No one should be forced to leave in a storm. It wasn't the welcome she'd hoped for, but it was something. Thank you. Wyatt moved to the door. We'll talk more tomorrow. Get some rest. As he reached for the handle, Elena called softly, Wyatt. He paused, looking back. The horse. Will you see her tomorrow? A faint smile touched his lips. I already have. She's beautiful, spirited, a lot like her namesake, I imagine. After he left, Elena sat for a long time, listening to the rain and the occasional rumble of thunder. The twins slept peacefully in the next room, unaware of the emotional currents swirling around them. Tomorrow, they would meet their father properly. Tomorrow, everything might change. The storm was beginning to ease when Elena finally lay down, fully clothed atop the quilt. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. Her mind kept returning to Wyatt's words. Maybe it needed complicating. What had he meant? Was there a chance, however small, that he might want them in his life? Not just the twins, but her as well. She dozed fitfully, waking to the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains. The storm had passed, leaving behind a freshly washed world and a sky of perfect blue. From somewhere outside came the sound of childish laughter. Elena bolted upright. The twins' beds were empty. She rushed downstairs to find the kitchen deserted, though a pot of coffee sat warming on the stove. Through the window, she spotted movement by the corral, and her heart skipped a beat. Wyatt stood with a child on either side of him, pointing out something in the paddock. Even from a distance, she could see the twins' animation, their excited gestures and rapt attention. And Wyatt, his posture was different, more relaxed, his head inclined toward the children as he listened to their chatter. Elena stepped onto the porch, watching the scene unfold. Martha appeared beside her, offering a steaming mug of coffee. "Been out there since sunrise," the older woman commented. Those little ones woke early, full of questions about the horses. The boss took them straight out to see them. "He did?" Elena accepted the coffee gratefully. Martha nodded, a knowing look in her eye. "First time I've seen him smile like that in years." Elena approached the corral slowly, not wanting to interrupt. Lucas spotted her first. "Mama, Mr. Callahan has 37 horses, and he said we can ride the gentle ones later." "Mr. Callahan is very kind," Elena said, meeting Wyatt's gaze over the children's heads. "He showed us Wyatt horse," Lily added excitedly. "She's in a special stall, because she's a guest." "Speaking of guests," Wyatt said, his voice carefully neutral, "I need to speak with your mother. Jake can show you the new foal that was born last week." As if on cue, the foreman appeared, greeting the children with a warmth that surprised Elena. "This way, partners. That little filly's been waiting to meet you." Once the twins were out of earshot, Elena turned to Wyatt. "Thank you for being kind to them. They're easy to be kind to." He leaned against the corral fence. "They're incredible, Elena. Smart, curious, polite. You've done a good job." The unexpected praise warmed her. "I've tried. I want to know them." Wyatt's direct gaze held hers. "I want to be their father, not just biologically, but in every way that matters." Hope flared in Elena's chest. "You do?" "Yes." He straightened, moving closer. "I've spent 5 years trying to forget you, building this place, telling myself I was better off alone. But seeing you again, meeting our children, it's like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing." Elena hardly dared breathe. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying stay." His voice dropped lower. "Not just until you figure things out. Stay permanently. The twins need stability, a home, both their parents." "As what?" Elena asked, needing clarity. "Your employees? Guests? What exactly are you offering, Wyatt?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I don't know. I haven't figured it all out yet. I just know I don't want to lose them now that I've found them. And I don't want to lose you again either." Elena's heart pounded. "You don't even know me anymore. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago." "Neither am I." Wyatt's gaze softened. "But I'd like the chance to know who you've become." Before Elena could respond, they were interrupted by the sound of hooves. A chestnut mare had somehow escaped her stall and was trotting toward them, head high, nostrils flared. "Wyatt!" Elena gasped, reaching for the horse's halter. The mare stopped just short of them, eyeing Wyatt with what could only be described as suspicion. "She's protective of you," Wyatt observed, extending his hand slowly to the horse. "Smart girl." To Elena's surprise, the mare allowed him to stroke her neck, though she remained alert, ears flicking back and forth. "She's never taken to anyone that quickly before," Elena said. "Except the twins." Wyatt's eyes met hers over the horse's withers. "Maybe she knows something we don't." In the distance, the twins laughed at something Jake had shown them. The morning sun illuminated the ranch, revealing its full beauty. Verdant pastures, sturdy buildings, mountains rising in the distance. "Stay," Wyatt said again, more softly this time. "Not for me, for them, for yourself. And maybe, eventually, for us." He hesitated, then added, "If she forgives me too." Elena looked at him, puzzled. "If who forgives you?" Wyatt nodded toward the mare. Wyatt, your horse, named for a man who hurt you. His voice lowered. If she can accept me, maybe it's a sign you could too someday. The mare nudged Wyatt's chest with her nose, as if responding to her name. Elena couldn't help but smile at the gesture. I think, she said carefully, she's already starting to. The following days blurred together in a whirlwind of activity as the twins explored every inch of Redemption Ranch with insatiable curiosity. Elena watched them blossom like wildflowers after rain, Lucas trailing after the ranch hands, asking endless questions about cattle and fencing, while Lily gravitated to the stables, displaying a natural affinity for horses that both pleased and startled Wyatt. She sits a saddle like she was born in one, he told Elena on the third evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Reminds me of you at that age. You didn't know me at that age, Elena reminded him with a small smile. Wyatt's eyes crinkled at the corners. No, but I've seen the photographs. Your mother showed me once. Little Elena Blackwood winning her first barrel racing competition at 6 years old. The mention of her mother brought a familiar ache. She kept that picture on the mantel until the day she died. They lapsed into comfortable silence, listening to the distant sounds of the ranch settling for the night. The easy rhythm of their conversation surprised Elena. Despite the years and hurt between them, they had fallen into an unexpectedly peaceful coexistence. During daylight hours, Wyatt ran the ranch with the efficiency and focus that had made it prosperous. Elena helped where she could, in the kitchen with Martha, organizing the chaotic ranch office, exercising some of the younger horses. The twins shadowed Wyatt whenever possible, soaking up his attention like parched earth absorbing rain. At night, after the children were asleep, Elena and Wyatt would sit on the porch or in his study, carefully navigating the landscape of their shared past and separate journeys. Neither mentioned the future directly, though it hung between them like an unspoken question. On the fifth morning, Elena woke to find Wyatt already gone, having left before dawn to move cattle to the high summer pastures. The twins were still asleep, exhausted from yesterday's adventure of helping to gather eggs and feeding the barn cats. Elena slipped downstairs to find Martha kneading bread dough, her strong hands working with practiced efficiency. "Morning, dear," the housekeeper greeted her. "Coffee's fresh." Elena poured herself a cup, inhaling the rich aroma. "Can I help with anything?" Martha nodded toward a basket of green beans. "Those need snapping for dinner." As they worked side by side, Elena found herself warming to the older woman. Martha had come to Redemption Ranch 15 years ago, after her husband died, and had been a fixture ever since. "He's different with you here," Martha said abruptly, punching down the dough with perhaps more force than necessary. Elena's fingers stilled on a bean. "Different how?" "More alive." Martha glanced up, her shrewd eyes assessing. "Before you showed up with those little ones, he was just going through the motions. Building this place, making money, working himself to exhaustion every day. But there wasn't any joy in it. His father left him quite a legacy to overcome," Elena said carefully. Martha snorted. Harold Callahan was a miserable excuse for a human being. Controlling, manipulative, cruel when it suited him. The things he did to keep Wyatt in line. She shook her head. That boy spent his whole life trying to earn approval from a man incapable of giving it. "I knew Harold didn't approve of me," Elena admitted, "but I didn't realize how far he'd go to keep us apart." Martha shaped the dough into loaves with deft movements. When Wyatt finally stood up to him, "After you left," Harold cut him off completely. Wyatt built Redemption from nothing, just to prove he could succeed without his father's money or connections. The revelation made Elena's chest ache. All those years, she'd nursed her hurt, believing Wyatt had chosen his inheritance over their relationship. The truth was painfully different. "I wish I'd known," she whispered. "Would it have changed anything?" Martha asked gently. Elena considered the question honestly. "I don't know. I was young, pregnant, and terrified. When Harold showed me the engagement announcement and told me Wyatt wanted nothing to do with me anymore, I believed him because it was easier than fighting for something that seemed already lost." Martha slid the bread pans into the oven. "Well, You're here now. That's what matters. For now, Elena agreed, the qualifier escaping before she could stop it. The housekeeper fixed her with a stern look. You planning on leaving again? Elena sighed. I don't know what I'm planning. Wyatt's been generous, but we can't impose forever. I need to find work, a place of our own. Seems to me there's plenty of work right here, Martha observed, and plenty of room, too. Before Elena could respond, the twins burst into the kitchen, full of morning energy and questions about breakfast. The conversation was effectively ended, but Martha's words lingered in Elena's mind throughout the day. That afternoon, Elena took the twins to visit their horse in the south barn. The mare had settled in well, seeming to enjoy the spacious stall and regular feeding schedule. She likes it here, Lily declared, stroking the horse's gleaming neck. Just like us. Lucas climbed the stall door, balancing precariously. Is this our home now, Mama? The question hit Elena like a physical blow. How could she explain the complexity of their situation to 3-year-olds, who saw only the wonder of a new place filled with animals and excitement? We're staying for a while, she hedged, while we figure things out. With Mr. Callahan? Lucas persisted. I like him. He knows everything about horses and cows, and he promised to teach me to rope. He's very nice to share his home with us, Elena agreed carefully. Lily looked up, her copper curls catching the sunlight streaming through the barn window. Is Mr. Callahan our daddy? Elena froze, caught off guard by the direct question. She and Wyatt had agreed to wait before explaining their relationship to the twins, wanting them to adjust to their new surroundings first. What makes you ask that, sweetheart? She stalled. Lily shrugged with the simple logic of childhood. He has hair like us, and Ms. Martha told Mrs. Peterson on the phone that we were the spitting image of our father. Is that Mr. Callahan? Elena knelt to eye level with her daughter, aware that Lucas had stopped climbing to listen intently. Yes, she said finally. Mr. Callahan is your daddy. Lucas's eyes widened. Really? For true? Really and truly. Does he know? Lily asked. Elena nodded. He knows. That's one reason we came here, so you could meet him. Lucas jumped down from the door. Can we call him Daddy instead of Mr. Callahan? You should ask him that, Elena suggested. But I think he'd like it very much. The twins exchanged excited glances, clearly processing this new information. Before they could ask more questions, the barn door opened, and Wyatt himself appeared, dusty from the day's work, but smiling at the sight of them. There's my favorite horse people, he greeted them. How's our guest doing today? She's great, Lucas exclaimed. And guess what? We know you're our daddy. Wyatt stopped short, his eyes flying to Elena's face. She gave a small, helpless shrug. Cat's out of the bag, she said softly. Lily figured it out. For a moment, Wyatt stood frozen, emotion washing over his features in waves. Then he knelt, opening his arms. That's right, he said, his voice rough. I am your daddy. The twins launched themselves at him without hesitation, nearly knocking him backward with the force of their embrace. Over their heads his eyes met Elena's, bright with unshed tears. Is that okay? He asked. The question meant for her rather than the children. That they know? Elena nodded, her own throat tight with emotion. They needed to know. That evening, dinner was a festive affair. The twins, excited by their new knowledge, peppered Wyatt with questions about everything from his favorite color to whether he'd teach them to ride the big horses. Slow down, you two, Elena laughed. Your father can't answer everything at once. I don't mind, Wyatt said, his expression softer than Elena had ever seen it. I've got 3 years of questions to catch up on. After the twins were finally tucked into bed, exhausted but happy, Elena found Wyatt on the porch, nursing a glass of whiskey and staring at the star-strewn sky. They took it well, she observed, sitting beside him on the swing. Better than I deserved. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. 3 years, Elena. 3 years I didn't know they existed. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I should have tried harder to find you. Wyatt sighed. "And I should have looked for you instead of believing my father when he said you'd left. Because you couldn't handle ranch life. We both made mistakes." "Where does that leave us now?" Elena asked, voicing the question that had hovered between them for days. Wyatt set his glass aside, turning to face her fully. "I've been thinking about that. A lot." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The twins need stability. They need both their parents." "I agree. And they've already fallen in love with this place." He gestured toward the ranch spreading around them. "Lucas told me today he wants to be a real cowboy when he grows up." Elena smiled despite her uncertainty. "Yesterday he wanted to be a pirate." "The point is," Wyatt continued, "I don't want them to leave. And I don't want you to leave either." Her heart quickened. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I just know that when I look at my life before you came back, before I knew about the twins, it seems empty. Hollow. All this," he waved his hand to encompass the prosperous ranch, "doesn't mean much without someone to share it with." "Wyatt," Elena said gently, "we can't just pick up where we left off 5 years ago. Too much has happened. We're different people now." "I know that." His eyes held hers steadily. "I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for a chance to get to know who you are now, to see if there's still something between us worth building on. And if there isn't, then we figure out how to be good parents to Lily and Lucas together, even if we're not together." He reached for her hand, his calloused palm warm against her skin. "But I think there is, Elena. I think there's still something there." The intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. Before she could respond, a cry from inside the house shattered the moment. "Mama!" Lily's frightened voice called. "Mama, I had a bad dream." Elena stood quickly. "I should go to her." Wyatt nodded, releasing her hand. "Go, we can talk more tomorrow." But tomorrow brought unexpected complications. Elena woke to find Wyatt already gone again, this time to deal with a fence breach on the north boundary. By mid-morning, dark clouds had gathered over the mountains, threatening another spring storm. Elena was helping Martha preserve strawberry jam when Jake burst into the kitchen, his expression grim. "There's trouble," he announced without preamble. "The creek's rising fast from the last storm's runoff. Wyatt and the boys are trying to move the herd to higher ground, but they're short-handed with Rodriguez out sick." Martha immediately began packing food into a basket. "Those boys will need to eat. I'll get sandwiches together." "Is there anything I can do?" Elena asked, already reaching for her jacket. Jake hesitated. "You ride well enough to help drive cattle?" "I grew up on a horse," Elena replied. "And I worked summers on the Carson spread during college. I can handle myself." "We could use the extra hands," Jake admitted. "But the kids—" "I'll mind them," Martha interjected. "You just be careful out there. The Blackwater Creek is mean when it floods." Within 30 minutes, Elena was mounted on a sturdy ranch gelding, riding beside Jake toward the north pasture. The sky had darkened further, and distant thunder rumbled ominously. "Wyatt won't be happy about me bringing you out," Jake commented as they urged their horses into a trot. "Wyatt doesn't control what I do," Elena replied evenly. "And if the situation is as bad as you say, he needs all the help he can get." They crested a ridge and Elena saw the problem immediately. The normally placid creek had swollen to 3 times its usual width, muddy water churning violently. On the far bank, several hundred cattle milled nervously, while Wyatt and 3 ranch hands attempted to guide them toward higher ground. "The bridge washed out," Jake explained, pointing to the remains of a wooden structure barely visible beneath the roiling water. "They're cut off. If that water rises much more, we could lose half the herd." As if on cue, the skies opened, sending sheets of rain cascading down. Elena pulled her hat lower, scanning the scene. "What's the plan?" "There's a ford about half a mile upstream," Jake shouted over the increasing wind. It's risky with the water this high, but it's our only shot at getting across to help. Elena nodded grimly. Lead the way. The ford, when they reached it, looked dangerously swollen, but still passable, barely. Jake tested it first, his horse stepping cautiously into the rushing water. Elena followed, her heart in her throat as the gelding fought the current. Halfway across, Jake's horse stumbled on a hidden obstacle, nearly going down. The foreman managed to keep his seat, but Elena's mount, spooked by the commotion, reared suddenly. Elena felt herself slipping, the rain-slick saddle offering no purchase. With a cry that was lost in the storm, she plunged into the churning creek. The frigid water knocked the breath from her lungs. Elena fought to surface, grateful for the swimming lessons her mother had insisted upon despite being miles from any significant body of water. The current tugged at her clothes, threatening to drag her under, but she managed to keep her head above water. "Elena!" Jake's shout seemed distant over the roar of the flood. She caught glimpses of him trying to maneuver his horse back toward her, but the animal was panicking, fighting to reach the far bank. "Go on!" she yelled, knowing he couldn't help her from horseback in these conditions. "Get help!" Elena focused on staying afloat, trying to angle herself toward the shore. The creek was wider here, its force somewhat less concentrated, giving her a fighting chance. Her waterlogged clothes and boots dragged at her, but desperation lent her strength. After what seemed an eternity, her feet scraped bottom. With the last of her energy, she lunged toward a half-submerged tree branch, clinging to it as she dragged herself toward the bank. Collapsing on the muddy shore, Elena gasped for breath, shivering violently in the continued downpour. She had made it to the same side as the cattle, and Wyatt. Looking up, she tried to get her bearings through the curtain of rain. A dark shape materialized from the gloom, a rider, approaching at a gallop. Even before he drew close enough to recognize, Elena knew it was Wyatt. His posture in the saddle was unmistakable. He dismounted before his horse had fully stopped, sliding the last few feet to kneel beside her. "Elena!" His face was white beneath the mud and rain. "Jake said you went into the creek." "I'm okay," she managed through chattering teeth. "Just cold." Wyatt shrugged out of his slicker, wrapping it around her, despite the rain still pelting down. "What were you thinking, crossing in these conditions?" "That you needed help," she replied simply. Something shifted in his expression. Without another word, he helped her to her feet, then lifted her onto his horse, mounting behind her. His arms encircled her as he took the reins, his body a solid wall of warmth at her back. "The cattle," Elena protested weakly. "The men have them moving now," Wyatt said, his mouth close to her ear to be heard over the storm. "They'll be fine. You're my priority." The ride back to the ranch passed in a blur of rain and increasing cold. By the time they reached the house, Elena was shivering uncontrollably, her lips tinged blue. Martha took one look at her and sprang into action, ordering hot baths and warm drinks. The twins, thankfully, were napping, unaware of their mother's ordeal. Later, wrapped in blankets before the fire in Wyatt's study, a mug of hot tea laced with whiskey warming her hands, Elena finally felt her body temperature returning to normal. "That was a foolish risk," Wyatt said from where he stood by the window, watching the continuing storm. "The creek has taken lives before." "I couldn't just sit here knowing you were in trouble," Elena responded. Wyatt turned to look at her, his expression complex. "Why not? You don't owe me anything, Elena." "Is that what you think this is about? Owing you?" She set her mug down with more force than intended. "I didn't risk my life out of some sense of debt. I did it because She stopped abruptly. "Because you what?" Wyatt moved closer, his eyes intent on her face. Elena met his gaze steadily. "Because I still care what happens to you. Because despite everything, you matter to me." The admission hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Wyatt sank to his knees before her chair, taking her still cold hands in his warm ones. "When Jake told me you'd gone into the creek," he said hoarsely, "I felt like my heart had been ripped out. All I could think was that I'd just found you again, found our children, and I was going to lose you before," he broke off, emotion overwhelming him. "Before what?" Elena whispered. "Before I could tell you that I never stopped loving you." The words came out in a rush. "Even when I thought you'd left because you didn't want this life. Even when I was angry and hurt and trying to convince myself I was better off alone. I never stopped." Elena's breath caught. Wyatt? You don't have to say anything, he interrupted. I know it's too soon. I know we've barely started to rebuild any kind of trust. But I needed you to know, seeing you in that creek, thinking I might lose you, it put everything in perspective. He released her hands, rising to his feet again. Rest now. We can talk more when you're stronger. As he moved toward the door, Elena found her voice. Wyatt. He paused, looking back. I never stopped either, she said softly. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the admission changing something fundamental between them. Then, Wyatt nodded once, a new light in his eyes, and left her to rest. The storm continued through the night, but Elena slept peacefully, exhaustion overcoming the lingering chill in her bones. She woke to sunshine streaming through the windows and the sound of the twins' excited voices from somewhere outside. Following the noise, she found them in the south barn with Wyatt, who was showing them how to groom their mother's horse. The mare stood patiently as Lucas brushed her neck with careful strokes, while Lily held a small curry comb in her hand, waiting her turn. Gentle, that's right, Wyatt was saying. Horses can feel a fly land on them, so you don't need to press hard. Like this, Daddy? Lucas asked, the term falling naturally from his lips. Perfect, buddy. Wyatt looked up, spotting Elena in the doorway. His face broke into a smile that made her heart flutter. Look who's up. How are you feeling? Much better. Elena moved closer, running a hand along the mare's flank. Though I think I've had enough water for a while. Mama, we're taking care of Wyatt Horse, Lily informed her proudly. Daddy says she was brave to come all this way with us. She was, Elena agreed, catching Wyatt's eye over the children's heads. Sometimes being brave means taking risks for the people you care about. Wyatt's gaze softened, understanding her reference to yesterday's events. And sometimes, he added quietly, it means giving second chances when they're deserved. The moment was interrupted by Jake appearing at the barn door, his expression urgent. Boss, got a call from the vet. That pregnant mare in the north barn is having complications. Wyatt straightened immediately. I'll be right there. He looked apologetically at the twins. Duty calls, partners. We'll finish this grooming lesson later. Can we come watch? Lucas asked eagerly. Not this time. Wyatt ruffled his hair. But I promise to teach you all about foaling when we have one that's going smoothly. After he hurried away with Jake, Elena helped the twins finish grooming the mare. As they worked, Lily looked thoughtfully at her mother. Mama, are we staying here forever? Elena hesitated. Would you like that? Both twins nodded vigorously. I like having a daddy, Lucas declared. And horses and cows and everything. And Daddy likes having us, Lily added with a child's certainty. He told me so. Elena smiled, though her chest tightened with emotion. He does like having you, very much. And you too, Lily insisted. He likes having you too. Out of the mouths of babes, Elena thought. We'll see, sweetheart. We're still figuring things out. But as she led the children back to the house for lunch, Elena realized that for the first time since arriving at Redemption Ranch, she was allowing herself to imagine a future here, a permanent one, with Wyatt and their children, building something new from the broken pieces of their past. The complication with the pregnant mare lasted well into the evening. Elena kept dinner warm for Wyatt, but when he hadn't returned by the twins' bedtime, she tucked them in with promises that they could check on the horses first thing in the morning. Will there be a baby horse? Lucas asked sleepily. We'll have to wait and see. Elena kissed his forehead. Sometimes these things take time. After the children were asleep, Elena found herself restless, unable to settle. The events of the past few days, her near drowning, Wyatt's confession, her own admission of feelings, swirled in her mind. She wandered downstairs, thinking a cup of chamomile tea might help her sleep. The kitchen was dark, but a light still burned in Wyatt's study. Elena hesitated, then knocked softly on the half-opened door. Wyatt looked up from his desk, exhaustion etched on his features. You're still up. Couldn't sleep, she admitted, stepping inside. How's the mare? Touch and go. He rubbed a hand across his face. The foal was breech. Carson's still with her, but he thinks they'll pull through. That's good news. Yeah. Wyatt leaned back in his chair. Sorry about dinner. And the grooming lesson. And everything else I promised the kids today. Elena smiled gently. They understand. Or they will when they're older. Ranch life means the animals come first sometimes. Still, he sighed, not exactly showing my best side as a new father. Actually, I think you are. Elena settled into the leather chair across from his desk. You're showing them responsibility, dedication, caring for creatures that depend on you. Those are important lessons. Wyatt's expression softened. You always did see the best in situations. In people. Not always, she countered. I believed the worst about you once, remember? We were both young. Wyatt's voice held no accusation, and my father was very convincing when he wanted to be. Elena traced the pattern on the arm of the chair, gathering her thoughts. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about never stopping loving me. Wyatt went very still, his eyes intent on her face. I need you to understand something, she continued carefully. When I left 5 years ago, I was devastated. I thought the man I loved had chosen his inheritance and family approval over me. Then I found out I was pregnant, and I was terrified and angry and hurt all at once. Elena, she held up a hand. Please, let me finish. Over the years, that hardened into something like resignation. I convinced myself that our relationship had just been a summer romance that meant more to me than it did to you. It was easier that way. But it wasn't true, Wyatt said quietly. No, it wasn't. But I believed it because it protected me. Elena met his gaze directly. The point is, I built a life without you. I raised our children. I took care of my mother. I learned to be strong on my own. And now, being here, feeling all these old emotions resurface. It's confusing. Wyatt nodded slowly. I understand. You need time. Not just time. Elena leaned forward. I need to know who we are now, Wyatt. Not the people we were 5 years ago, but who we've become. Before we can decide if there's a future for us together, we need to rediscover each other. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. That sounds remarkably sensible. I've had to be sensible. Single motherhood doesn't leave much room for impulsive decisions. And what does sensible Elena Blackwood suggest? She took a deep breath. That we take things slowly. That we focus on being parents to the twins first, and see where that leads us. No promises, no pressure, just possibility. Wyatt's expression was unreadable for a moment. Then he nodded. Possibility. I can live with that. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight, breaking the intimate atmosphere. Elena rose from her chair. I should get some sleep. And so should you, by the looks of it. As she reached the door, Wyatt called softly, Elena. She turned back. Thank you for bringing them here. For giving me the chance to know them. Whatever happens between us, I'll always be grateful for that. His sincerity touched her deeply. They're lucky to have you as their father, Wyatt. I think perhaps I always knew they would be. The next morning brought sunshine and good news. The mare and foal had both survived the difficult birth. After breakfast, Wyatt took the twins to see the newborn, their excited chatter echoing back to the house where Elena was helping Martha with the laundry. Those children have breathed new life into him, Martha observed, hanging a sheet on the line. And into this place. Elena smiled, handing her another clothespin. They have that effect. Even on my darkest days after my mother died, they could make me laugh. Children are resilient that way, Martha agreed. But it's not just the children changing things around here. Elena busied herself with smoothing a pillowcase. What do you mean? The older woman gave her a knowing look. I've worked for Wyatt Callahan for 15 years. I've seen him determined, angry, even content at times, but I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Heat rose to Elena's cheeks. We have a complicated history. Most worthwhile things do. Martha pinned the last garment and picked up the empty basket. Life's too short for pride to get in the way of happiness, Elena. Remember that. Before she could respond, The sound of an approaching vehicle drew their attention. A sleek black SUV was coming up the drive, leaving a trail of dust in its wake. Now who could that be? Martha frowned. We're not expecting any visitors today. The vehicle stopped in front of the house, and a woman emerged. Tall, elegantly dressed, with perfectly styled blonde hair. Even from a distance, Elena could see she was beautiful in a polished, sophisticated way. "Oh my," Martha murmured. "Victoria Hammond. This should be interesting." Elena's stomach dropped. Victoria Hammond, the woman Harold Callahan had wanted for his son, the woman whose engagement announcement Elena had seen all those years ago. "I should go inside," Elena said quickly. "Nonsense." Martha's hand on her arm stopped her. "This is your home now. You have every right to be here." Before Elena could correct this assumption, Redemption Ranch was not, in fact, her home. Victoria had spotted them and was approaching with confident strides. "Martha," she greeted the housekeeper with a practiced smile. "It's been ages. Is Wyatt around?" "He's in the north barn with his children," Martha replied, emphasizing the last word slightly. "I can fetch him if it's urgent." Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Children? I wasn't aware Wyatt had started a family." Her curious gaze shifted to Elena, assessment in her eyes. Elena straightened her shoulders, acutely aware of her simple jeans and work shirt beside Victoria's designer outfit. "Elena Blackwood," she introduced herself, extending a hand. "And you are?" "Victoria Hammond." The handshake was brief but firm. "An old friend of Wyatt's." Martha snorted softly. "I'll go let him know you're here." She disappeared toward the barns, leaving the two women alone. "So," Victoria said after an awkward pause, "you and Wyatt have children together?" The direct question caught Elena off guard. "Twins. They're 3. Victoria's expression flickered with surprise. "I see. I hadn't heard Wyatt was involved with anyone." "It's complicated," Elena said, unwilling to explain their entire history to this stranger. "It always is with Wyatt." Victoria laughed lightly. "He never does anything the conventional way." Before the conversation could continue, Wyatt appeared, striding toward them with purpose. His expression was guarded as he approached. "Victoria, this is unexpected." "Wyatt, darling." She leaned in to kiss his cheek. "I was in the area and thought I'd stop by. It's been months since the fundraiser in Missoula." 5 months, he agreed, stepping back subtly. "What brings you here?" Victoria glanced at Elena, then back to Wyatt. "Perhaps we could speak privately?" "Business matters." Wyatt's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Elena is aware of my business dealings. We have no secrets." The assertion, though not entirely true, warmed Elena unexpectedly. Victoria's smile dimmed slightly. "Very well. The Montana Land Conservancy is considering your proposal for the easement on the East Ridge property. The board is impressed with your conservation plan, but they have some concerns about the cattle access to the waterways." "I've addressed those concerns in the revised proposal," Wyatt replied. "The cattle will be fenced out of the sensitive riparian areas with designated crossing points that minimize impact." Victoria nodded. "I thought as much, but some board members wanted personal assurance. I volunteered to speak with you directly." She smiled again, more warmly. "And perhaps catch up over dinner? For old time's sake?" Elena felt a flicker of something that felt suspiciously like jealousy. She started to step away, to give them privacy, but Wyatt's hand reached for hers, stopping her retreat. "I appreciate you coming all this way," he said to Victoria, "but I'm afraid dinner isn't possible. Family obligations." Victoria's gaze dropped to their joined hands, understanding dawning in her eyes. "I see. Well, perhaps another time." She turned to Elena with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It was lovely meeting you, Elena. Your children are fortunate to have found their father." The emphasis on found was subtle but unmistakable. Victoria knew their situation wasn't as straightforward as Wyatt had implied. After Victoria had departed in a cloud of expensive perfume and dust, Elena turned to Wyatt. "You didn't have to do that." "Do what?" Turn down dinner, imply we're whatever it is you implied we are. Wyatt's expression was unreadable. Victoria and I dated briefly after my father died. It wasn't serious, at least not on my part. She's been hoping for more ever since. She's beautiful, Elena observed. Successful, from the sounds of it. She is? Wyatt's thumb traced circles on the back of Elena's hand, which he still held. But she's not you. The simple declaration stole Elena's breath. Before she could respond, the twins came running from the barn, full of excitement about the new foal. "Daddy says we can name him," Lucas announced, barreling into Elena's legs. "That's a big responsibility," she managed, ruffling his hair while trying to process Wyatt's words. "We want to call him Chance," Lily declared. "Because the doctor said he had a small chance, but he made it anyway." Wyatt smiled down at his daughter. "I think that's a perfect name." Elena met his eyes over the children's heads, wondering if the name held deeper meaning for him too. A small chance against the odds. Like them, perhaps. That evening, after the children were asleep, Wyatt found Elena on the porch swing, wrapped in a light blanket against the spring chill. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. She shifted to make room. "It's your porch." "Our porch," he corrected gently, settling beside her. At least for now. They swung in companionable silence for several minutes, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. "Victoria seemed nice," Elena said finally, unable to keep the question from her mind. Wyatt sighed. "She is nice. Smart, capable, driven. Everything my father wanted for me." "Why didn't it work between you?" He considered the question seriously. "Because when I was with her, I was always conscious of playing a role. Successful rancher, eligible bachelor, community leader. It never felt real." "And with me?" Elena asked softly. Wyatt turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the porch light. "With you, I've never been anything but myself, even when it meant being vulnerable or afraid or uncertain. You saw me, Elena. The real me. No one else ever has." The honesty in his voice touched something deep inside her. "I felt that way too," she admitted. "Like I could be myself with you, without judgment or expectations." "What happened to us, Elena?" The question held genuine bewilderment. "How did we let something that rare slip away?" She shook her head. "We were young, easily manipulated, afraid to fight for what we wanted. And now?" His voice dropped lower. "Are we still afraid?" The question hung between them, laden with possibility. Elena looked out at the ranch, silver in the moonlight. In the distance, the mountains stood as eternal witnesses to human dramas playing out beneath their silent watch. "I'm afraid of making another mistake," she said finally. "Of disrupting the twins' lives if things don't work out between us. They adore you already, Wyatt. If we tried again and failed..." "I understand." His hand found hers on the swing between them. "But there's something I need to say, and then I promise I'll respect whatever boundaries you need." She nodded for him to continue. "I love you, Elena Blackwood. I loved you 5 years ago, and I love you now. Differently. Perhaps. More deeply. Certainly, but just as truly." His voice was steady, his gaze unwavering. "I love our children with everything in me, and I'm grateful beyond words that you brought them into my life. But my feelings for you stand apart from that gratitude. They always have." Elena's heart thundered in her chest. "Wyatt, you don't need to say anything," he assured her quickly. "I'm not asking for promises or commitments. I just needed you to know where I stand. The rest is up to you." He rose, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead before heading back inside, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts in the endless Montana sky. The following week passed in a blur of ranch activities. Spring on Redemption Ranch meant calving season, fence repairs after winter damage, and preparation for summer grazing. Elena found herself falling naturally into the rhythm of ranch life, helping where she could while caring for the twins. To her surprise, Wyatt didn't press the issue of their relationship further. He was unfailingly kind, attentive to the children, and respectful of her space. If anything, his restraint made her more aware of him, the way he moved with natural grace despite his size, how his smile transformed his face when the twins made him laugh, the quiet competence with which he ran the ranch. One afternoon, Elena took the mare, still called Wyatt despite the real Wyatt's teasing, for a ride across the eastern pastures. The horse moved eagerly beneath her, clearly enjoying the exercise after weeks of limited activity. Elena rode without conscious direction, letting the mare choose their path. They crested a small rise, and Elena reined in, caught by the view before her. The valley spread out in all its spring glory, wildflowers dotting the green pastures, the river winding like a silver ribbon through the landscape. In the distance stood a small cabin, nestled against a backdrop of pines. Curious, Elena guided the mare toward it. As they drew closer, she saw it was an old homestead, recently renovated. Fresh timbers shored up the original logs, a new roof gleamed in the sunlight, and the small porch had been rebuilt. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Elena started at Wyatt's voice. He approached on his own mount, a powerful black gelding that dwarfed her mare. "I didn't hear you coming," she said, heart racing from the surprise. "Sorry." He smiled apologetically. "Ranch habit. Always aware of where everyone is." "You were following me?" "Watching out for you," he corrected gently. "These pastures are safe enough, but it's always good to have company when riding." Elena nodded toward the cabin. "What is this place? The original homestead?" Wyatt dismounted, coming to help her down. "My great-grandfather built it in 1898. The main house came later, when the ranch expanded." "You've been restoring it," Elena observed, running her hand along the smooth new wood of the porch railing. "For the past year or so." Wyatt produced a key from his pocket. "Want to see inside?" The interior was simple but charming. One main room with a riverstone fireplace, a small kitchen area, and 2 doors leading to what Elena assumed were bedrooms. The furnishings were minimal but thoughtfully chosen. A comfortable sofa, a solid pine table with 4 chairs, bookshelves built into the walls. "It's lovely," she said, turning in a slow circle. "But why restore it if no one lives here?" Wyatt leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "Originally, I thought it might make a nice guest cabin, or perhaps a foreman's house if Jake ever decides to settle down." "And now?" He hesitated. "Now I'm not sure. I just knew it deserved to be brought back to life, to be a home again." Something in his tone made Elena look at him more closely. "You love this land very much, don't you?" "It's in my blood." Wyatt moved to the window, gazing out at the view. "When my father was alive, the ranch felt like a burden, something I was obligated to care for because of family legacy. After he died, I started to see it differently. Not as a Callahan inheritance, but as a living thing in its own right, something to be stewarded rather than owned." Elena joined him at the window. "That's why you're working with the Land Conservancy. To protect it." He nodded. "The easement ensures the East Ridge will never be developed, no matter who owns the ranch in the future. The wildlife corridors, the watershed, the old-growth forest, all preserved." "That's a remarkable legacy to leave," Elena said softly. Wyatt turned to her. "I want to leave more than that. I want to leave a family that loves this land as much as I do. Children who understand its value beyond dollars and cents." Their eyes met, and Elena felt the full weight of his words. This wasn't just about the land or the ranch. It was about the future, their children's future, and potentially their own. "Is that why you showed me this place?" she asked. "To help me understand what matters to you?" "Partly." Wyatt took a deep breath. "And partly because I wanted you to see it before I asked if you and the twins would consider making Redemption Ranch your permanent home." Elena's breath caught. "Wyatt." "Not necessarily with me," he added quickly, "though that would be my preference. But this cabin could be yours, independent of any relationship between us. You could establish your horse training business here, be close enough for the twins to have both parents in their daily lives, but have your own space." The offer stunned her. "You'd do that? Give us this place regardless of what happens between us." In a heartbeat. His certainty was absolute. "Elena, all I want is for our children to grow up happy and secure." And selfishly, I want to be part of their everyday lives, not a weekend father or a holiday visit. Tears pricked at Elena's eyes. That's incredibly generous. It's not generosity, Wyatt said quietly. It's love. For them and for you, whether you can return those feelings or not. Elena turned away, overwhelmed by emotion. The cabin, with its simple beauty and connection to the past, represented everything she'd ever wanted for her children: stability, history, a sense of belonging. And Wyatt's offer came with no strings, no expectations beyond co-parenting. But was that truly what she wanted? A separate life? Connected, but not united? I need time to think, she said finally. Of course. Wyatt stepped back, giving her space. No pressure, no timeline. The offer stands regardless. As they rode back to the main house, Elena couldn't help glancing back at the cabin, its windows catching the afternoon sun like welcoming eyes. Whatever she decided, she knew one thing with certainty. Wyatt Callahan was not the man she'd believed him to be 5 years ago. He was better, stronger, more generous of spirit than she could have imagined. And that realization made her choice both easier and infinitely more complicated. The following days brought a flurry of activity to Redemption Ranch. A group of potential buyers was coming to see Wyatt's prized quarter horses, and everyone was busy preparing for their arrival. Elena found herself naturally stepping into the role of hostess, helping Martha plan meals and arrange accommodations for the overnight guests. "You're good at this," Martha observed as they changed linens in the guest rooms. "Got a knack for anticipating what people need before they ask." Elena smiled, tucking hospital corners with practiced efficiency. "My mother taught me. She always said hospitality wasn't about fancy things, but about making people feel welcome." "Wise woman!" Martha nodded approvingly. Wyatt never much cared for the social side of ranching. His father used to host elaborate parties to impress investors, but Wyatt prefers keeping to himself. "He's making an exception for these buyers? They're important." Martha smoothed a quilt over the bed. "The Harrington stables supply horses to competitions all over the country. Their endorsement would put Redemption's breeding program on the map." The importance of the visit wasn't lost on Elena. That evening she found Wyatt in his study, going over financial records with Jake. "Sorry to interrupt," she said from the doorway. "I just wanted to check if there's anything special the Harringtons might need during their stay." Jake stood, gathering his papers. "I should turn in anyway. Early start tomorrow." He nodded to Elena as he passed. "Night, ma'am." When they were alone, Wyatt leaned back in his chair with a tired sigh. "Thanks for all you're doing to help with this visit. It's more than I had any right to expect." "It's no trouble." Elena perched on the edge of his desk. "I want to contribute while we're here." Wyatt's eyes searched her face. "Have you given any thought to my offer?" "About the cabin?" "I have." Elena looked down at her hands. "It's incredibly generous, Wyatt. More than generous." "But?" She met his gaze directly. "But I'm not sure it's the right solution for us." Something like disappointment flickered across his features, quickly masked. "I understand. If you'd prefer to look for a place in town, I could help with—" "That's not what I meant," Elena interrupted gently. "The cabin is beautiful, and in many ways it would be perfect. But I'm not sure separation is what any of us need right now." Wyatt went very still. "What are you saying, Elena?" She took a deep breath. "I'm saying that these past weeks have shown me something important. The twins are thriving here, with both of us. They need stability, yes, but they also need to see their parents building something together, not just coexisting separately." "And what about what you need?" Wyatt asked quietly. "That's the part I've been struggling with." Elena rose, moving to the window. Outside, the ranch was settling into evening, lights coming on in the bunkhouse, stars appearing in the darkening sky. 5 years ago, I thought I needed you to be happy. Then you were gone, and I learned to be strong on my own. I built a life for us, the twins and me. I was proud of that independence." "As you should be," Wyatt said. She turned back to him. "But being here, seeing you with our children, watching you work this land with such dedication, It's reminded me of something I'd forgotten. Sometimes strength isn't about standing alone. Sometimes it's about being brave enough to build something with someone else, even when it's scary. Wyatt stood, moving toward her slowly, as if afraid she might vanish if he moved too quickly. "What exactly are you saying, Elena?" "I'm saying I don't want the cabin, Wyatt. Not as a separate home." She took a steadying breath. "I'm saying I think the twins and I belong here, at the main house. With you. If that's still what you want." For a moment, Wyatt simply looked at her, emotion washing over his features in waves. Then he closed the distance between them, taking her face in his hands with infinite tenderness. "It's all I've wanted since the moment I saw you standing in my driveway with our children," he said, his voice rough with feeling. "A second chance. A family. A future together." Their lips met in a kiss that held 5 years of longing, of missed opportunities and new beginnings. When they finally parted, Elena rested her forehead against his chest, listening to the strong, steady beat of his heart. "We'll take it slow," she whispered. "One day at a time." Wyatt's arms tightened around her. "We have all the time in the world." The arrival of the Harrington family the next morning brought a welcome distraction from the emotional intensity of their decision. Wyatt introduced Elena and the twins with quiet pride, making no attempt to hide or explain their unconventional situation. "Your children are delightful," Margaret Harrington commented as they toured the stables later that morning. "They have your love of horses, clearly." "They get that from both their parents," Wyatt replied, his hand finding the small of Elena's back in a gesture that felt both protective and possessive. "Elena was a champion barrel racer in her youth." "Really?" Margaret's interest perked up. "We're always looking for talented trainers for our junior riders. Have you considered returning to the competitive circuit?" The question caught Elena off guard. "It's been years since I competed." "But you still ride?" Margaret pressed. "Every chance I get." "She's being modest," Wyatt interjected. "She can still outride most of my hands, and her instincts with problem horses are remarkable." Margaret exchanged a meaningful look with her husband. "We should talk more about this later. We have several young horses that need a special touch, and finding the right trainer has been challenging." The conversation moved on, but the seed had been planted. That evening, after a successful dinner where the twins charmed the Harringtons with their precocious questions about horses, Elena found herself on the porch with Margaret, while the men discussed breeding lineages inside. "Wyatt tells me you're rebuilding your life after losing your mother," Margaret said without preamble. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." Elena was touched by the sincerity in the older woman's voice. "It's been difficult, but having the twins helps. And finding Wyatt again." Margaret smiled knowingly. "Love has a way of circling back when it's meant to be. My Robert and I were childhood sweethearts who lost touch for 20 years before fate brought us together again." "Really?" Elena was surprised by this revelation about the elegant, successful couple. "Oh, yes. We both married other people, had separate lives. Then we found each other at a horse auction in Kentucky, both recently widowed." Margaret's eyes twinkled. Sometimes the timing has to be right for things to work out the way they're supposed to. The sentiment resonated deeply with Elena. "I'm beginning to believe that. Now, about my proposition." Margaret leaned forward. "We're looking for someone to work with our junior riders and some of our more sensitive horses. The position includes housing on our property near Lexington, excellent salary, and opportunities to compete if you're interested. Your children would have access to the best schools, and there's a vibrant community of equestrian families." Elena's breath caught. The offer was incredibly generous, a dream opportunity for someone with her background and skills. A few weeks ago, it would have seemed like a miracle solution to her problems. "I'm very flattered," she began carefully. "Don't answer now," Margaret advised. "Talk it over with Wyatt. Think about what's best for your family. The offer will remain open." Later that night, after the Harringtons had retired to their rooms and the twins were asleep, Elena told Wyatt about Margaret's proposition. "It's an incredible opportunity," he said after she'd explained the details. His voice was carefully neutral, but Elena could see the tension in his shoulders. "It would have been, once, she agreed, moving to stand before him. A dream job, financial security, a chance to use my skills again. The twins would have advantages there they might not have here, Wyatt added, still not meeting her eyes. Private schools, cultural experiences, opportunities I can't provide. Elena placed her hand on his cheek, gently turning his face to hers. But they wouldn't have you. Not every day. Not for the small moments that matter most. Hope flickered in his eyes. You're turning it down? I already did. She smiled at his surprise. I thanked Margaret for her generosity, but explained that my family's roots are here now. That the twins need their father as much as they need opportunities. That I found where I belong. Wyatt pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. I wouldn't have stood in your way, he murmured. If it was what you truly wanted, I would have supported your decision. I know, Elena held him tightly. That's one of the reasons I love you, Wyatt Callahan. You would put our happiness above your own. He drew back to look at her, wonder in his expression. Say that again. I love you. The words came easily now, natural and true. I think I never really stopped. Their kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with promises neither needed to voice aloud. When they finally parted, Wyatt rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, he whispered. Elena smiled. That's not taking it slow. 5 years wasn't slow enough? His eyes held a mixture of hope and vulnerability that touched her deeply. I don't need an answer tonight. Just promise you'll think about it. She kissed him again softly. I promise. The Harringtons' visit concluded with a substantial purchase of 3 of Redemption's finest young horses and an open invitation for Elena to consult on their training program whenever she wished. As they prepared to depart, Margaret took Elena aside. I understand your decision, she said warmly. Family comes first. But don't let those talents of yours go to waste. There's room in life for both love and purpose. I won't, Elena assured her. In fact, Wyatt and I have been discussing the possibility of expanding Redemption's program to include training for young riders. The old homestead cabin would make a perfect weekend lodging for visiting students. Margaret's eyes lit up. Now that's thinking creatively. Keep me posted on that project. The Harrington Foundation might be interested in supporting it. After the Harringtons departed, life at Redemption settled into a new rhythm. With Elena's decision to stay permanently, she began fully integrating into the ranch operations, bringing her own ideas and perspectives to the family business. One evening in late May, Wyatt found her in the study, surrounded by sketches and notes. What's all this? He asked, peering over her shoulder. Plans for the riding program. Elena gestured to the papers spread before her. If we convert the old hay barn near the cabin into an indoor arena, we could offer year-round training. And these are potential cabin layouts for student housing. Wyatt picked up one of the sketches, studying it with interest. You've really thought this through. I have. She looked up at him, excitement in her eyes. It would combine both our strengths, your breeding program and my training experience. We could create something special here, Wyatt. Something that's ours together, not just yours or mine. He set down the paper, his expression thoughtful. I like that idea. Building something new, together. He paused, then added casually. Speaking of building things together, I've been meaning to ask you something. Elena raised an eyebrow. Yes? The twins' birthday is coming up next month. Wyatt leaned against the desk. I was thinking we could have a proper celebration. Invite some of the neighboring families, make it special. They'd love that, Elena agreed. They've never had a big party before. And I was thinking, Wyatt continued, his voice deliberately casual. It might be nice to give them a special gift. Something meaningful. Like what? Like a family. His eyes held hers steadily. A real one, official in every way. Elena's heart quickened. Are you proposing again, Wyatt Callahan? I'm suggesting that their birthday might be the perfect time for a wedding, he said softly. If their mother has had enough time to think about my proposal. Elena stood, moving into his arms. Their mother has done nothing but think about it. And her answer is yes. Joy broke across Wyatt's face like sunrise. Yes? Yes? Elena laughed as he lifted her off her feet in a fierce embrace. On one condition. He set her down, suddenly serious. Anything. That mare of mine keeps her name. Elena's eyes danced with mischief. I've grown rather attached to calling for Wyatt across the pasture. His laughter filled the room. Done. Though it might get confusing around the ranch. We'll manage, Elena assured him, pulling his head down for a kiss that sealed their future together. The weeks leading up to the twins' birthday passed in a flurry of preparations, both for their party and for the small, intimate wedding that would precede it. Elena found herself embraced by the local community, welcomed not as Wyatt's guest or the mother of his children, but as a woman coming home to where she belonged. Never seen Callahan this happy, the elderly owner of the general store told her as she picked up decorations for the celebration. About time that ranch had a proper family again. Word spread quickly, as it always does in small communities. Former acquaintances reached out with congratulations and offers of help. Even Victoria Hammond sent a gracious note and a generous gift for the twins. 3 days before the wedding, Elena was in the cabin, arranging wildflowers for the simple ceremony, when she heard the sound of a truck approaching. Stepping onto the porch, she was surprised to see a familiar vehicle coming up the drive, her old Ford, repaired and running smoothly. Jake climbed out, wiping his hands on a rag. Got her working again. Thought you might want to keep her around, for sentimental reasons if nothing else. Elena ran her hand along the truck's faded paint. She brought us here when we had nowhere else to go. Thank you, Jake. The foreman shuffled his feet, uncomfortable with gratitude. Boss's orders. Said it was important to remember how journeys begin, even when they end somewhere different than expected. That evening, Elena found Wyatt in the nursery they'd created for the twins in the main house, putting the finishing touches on a hand-carved rocking horse, a birthday gift he'd been working on in secret. It's beautiful, she said from the doorway, admiring the craftsmanship. They'll love it. Wyatt straightened, rubbing the small of his back. Not too extravagant, I hope. I don't want to spoil them. A father's handmade gift could never be too extravagant. Elena moved to his side, running her fingers over the smooth wooden mane. Jake brought back my truck today. Is that okay? Wyatt looked suddenly uncertain. I thought you might want to keep it, but if it brings back difficult memories. It's perfect. She leaned into him, drawing comfort from his solid presence. It reminds me that sometimes the hardest journeys lead us exactly where we need to be. Wyatt's arm circled her waist. Are you happy, Elena? Truly happy with this decision? She looked up at him, seeing the flash of vulnerability behind his question. Happier than I ever thought possible. This is where we belong, Wyatt. All of us, together. The morning of the twins' birthday dawned clear and bright, a perfect June day. By arrangement, the wedding ceremony would take place at sunrise, with just Martha, Jake, and the twins as witnesses. The birthday celebration would follow in the afternoon, a community affair with neighbors and friends invited to share in their joy. Elena woke before dawn, slipping out of bed without waking the twins, who had insisted on a special sleepover in her room on their last night as just Blackwoods, as Lucas had put it. She dressed quietly in the simple white dress she'd chosen, adorned only with a ribbon of blue, her mother's, borrowed from a treasured keepsake box. The cabin beckoned through her window, its windows warm with lamplight. Wyatt was there already, honoring the tradition of not seeing his bride before the ceremony. Elena felt a flutter of nerves, not from doubt but from the magnitude of the moment. A soft knock at her door revealed Martha, coming to help with final preparations. The children are still sleeping, Elena whispered, gesturing to the twin beds where Lily and Lucas lay curled like kittens. Let them rest a bit longer, Martha advised. Jake will bring them over when it's time. She helped Elena with her hair, weaving wildflowers into the simple upswept style. You look beautiful, dear. Maggie would be so proud today. Tears pricked at Elena's eyes. I wish she could be here. She is, in her way. Martha squeezed her hand. In those two sleeping children, in your smile, in the strength that brought you here. Some people never really leave us." When it was time, Elena woke the twins gently. Their excitement at the special day was infectious, dispelling any lingering nervousness. "You look like a princess, Mama," Lily breathed, her eyes wide at the sight of Elena in her wedding dress. "Are we really all going to be Callahans today?" Lucas asked, struggling with the buttons of his new shirt. "We are." Elena knelt to help him. "How does that sound?" "Good." He nodded seriously. "But can I still be Lucas?" Elena laughed, kissing his forehead. "Always and forever, my brave boy." The short walk to the cabin felt both endless and momentary. The eastern sky was just beginning to brighten, promising the spectacular sunrise Redemption Ranch was known for. Jake waited for them at the cabin door, looking uncharacteristically formal in a pressed shirt and string tie. "Ready?" he asked gruffly. Elena nodded, taking a deep breath. The twins, solemn with the importance of their role, took their places on either side of her. Together, they entered the cabin. Wyatt stood before the stone fireplace, tall and handsome, in a dark suit that highlighted the copper in his hair, the same shade the twins had inherited. His eyes found Elena's immediately, and the love she saw there took her breath away. The ceremony was simple, but profound. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises not just to each other but to the children who stood as witnesses to this new beginning. When Wyatt spoke of forgiveness and second chances, of building a legacy of love rather than obligation, Elena felt as though her heart might burst with fullness. "The ring, please, Lucas," the justice of the peace prompted gently. With great ceremony, Lucas produced the simple gold band from his pocket, proudly presenting it to Wyatt. "Thank you, son," Wyatt said, the emotion in his voice unmistakable. As he slid the ring onto Elena's finger, he added words not in their prepared vows. "This ring belonged to my grandmother, who built this ranch with love and determination. Like her, you bring heart to this land. Like her, you make it more than a place. You make it a home." After they were pronounced husband and wife, after the kiss that sealed their vows, Wyatt knelt before the twins. "Lily, Lucas," he said solemnly, "today isn't just about your mother and me. It's about the four of us becoming a family in every way that matters. I promise to love and protect you always, to be the father you deserve, and to honor the journey that brought us together." From his pocket, he produced 2 small boxes. Inside each was a silver pendant shaped like a horse, one with a tiny ruby eye, one with a sapphire. "Happy birthday," he said, helping them put on their necklaces. "And happy family day." Elena knelt beside him, encircling all 3 in her embrace. Through the cabin window, the first rays of sunrise illuminated them in golden light, a new day dawning for the family that had found its way home against all odds. As they walked back to the main house, hand in hand beneath the brightening sky, Elena glanced back at the cabin, where their journey had culminated, where promises had been made and a future secured. "What are you thinking?" Wyatt asked, noticing her pause. Elena smiled up at him, her heart full. That she was right after all. "Who was my mare?" Elena said, laughter in her voice. "Wyatt forgave me, just as you forgave me. It seems she knew something we didn't." Wyatt squeezed her hand, watching as their children ran ahead, already racing toward their future with the boundless energy of youth. "Some things are just meant to be," he said simply, "no matter how many detours we take along the way." And as they followed their children home, Elena knew with absolute certainty that this family, this love, this place, was exactly where she was always meant to find herself. Not through the straight path she might have once imagined, but through the winding journey that had tested them both, strengthened them both, and ultimately brought them back together, wiser, more appreciative, and ready at last to build something that would last a lifetime. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.